Welcome to my YouTube. I'm Professor Raymond L. Williams, endurance cyclist, academic, and author of 16 books. And I'm sharing YouTubes on the subjects I've kind of used to introduce myself. That is, I have a series of podcasts and parallel YouTubes on cycling, spinning, and training. And then I have some podcasts with parallel YouTubes on some academic and literary stuff. So since today I'm talking really about cycling, spinning, and training and stuff related to bicycles more specifically, I'd like to mention that you can find the list of our 64 podcasts and some YouTubes on my website, which is www.thetop64.com. Within that, you can see the list of the series of different podcasts and the subjects that we're up to. The subject for today has to do with basic mechanics. That is, not the basic mechanics of actually fixing bikes, because I'm actually not going to teach you very much at all about fixing bikes on any of these podcasts, because I know I have a lot of other YouTubes available for me to watch when I need to fix my bike. And I don't even recommend that you fix your bike. I recommend that you take it to a good bike shop if you want to know the truth. And I'll explain why in future YouTubes and podcasts. But one exception would be bicycle maintenance. But today I'm not even going to do bicycle maintenance. I just want to show you a few things that I've been frustrated about related to my podcast, in that I need some visual help to show you a few things. So in this podcast, this is my first opportunity to introduce you to some stuff that's very simple with a visual, i.e. this YouTube, compared to tiresome descriptions on the podcast, and probably boring descriptions on the podcast. So if you're interested in cycling or spinning or both, and the training related to that, you might find my 4 subjects today a little bit useful. They don't pretend to be transcendental by any means, but I think they're all a little bit useful. So I have 4 subjects. This will take us about 15 or 20 minutes at the most. The first subject has to do with this height of your saddle. And I've seen so many formulas about this when I go to my spinning classes, and sometimes on bike clubs too. I've been a member of 4 or 5 bicycle clubs, and the bike clubs do pretty well in general because they ride bikes, and they suffer the consequences, and they get corrections if things are not quite in order. You can ride with an improper bike height, however, in a spinning class for quite a while. Like, I think you could do it for months, maybe years, and be significantly off. And I see that happening in classes, because more when I'm attending the class as a client than when I'm teaching it. Because of course, when I'm teaching the spin classes, I try to make the proper corrections, but I wouldn't claim actually to be 100% proficient there either, because when you come in new and you're sitting at the back and come late, our verbal help in the middle of the class isn't always proficient. But I should also say that I've heard some really weird explanations, even by some spinning instructors who are not cyclists, about seat height. So, I'm sure in some way some of this is helpful, some of the weird stuff I hear. But I want to show you, first of all, a measurement that can be really important if you're a cyclist or a spinner. I mean, really important if you're either one. But if you're a cyclist, I recommend that you get something to measure like this. You can use a stiff, the old stiff yardstick if you want, or the stiffer measuring tape. But I like this because I can manipulate it exactly as I want. And I'm just going to show you how we measure seat height. Because after we establish seat height, which I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you how you can measure it and then keep that measurement. You want to be right in the middle here of your sprocket, and then bring your measuring tape straight up along this, straight to the top. So you see, it's not the front. It's not like straight up. It's not straight back. It's following straight up here, and then there's this imaginary line that goes to the top right there. So this one, for example, measures exactly 28 inches, 28 and an eighth inches. This is 28 and 1/8 of an inch. So that measurement, 28 and 1/8 of an inch for this bike, which you notice, by the way, it's a pretty cool bike. It's a fixed gear, single speed bike. It's a steel bike. It's very clean for a bicycle. It's very minimalistic. And so you want to have it dialed in really well. You want to have any bike dialed in. But on a clean bike like this, it's relatively hard to manipulate, like hard to pedal, for example. You'll pay a big price if your seat height is wrong. We're going to talk in a minute about the price you're going to pay. But that figure that 28 inches and 1/8, 28 and 1/8 inches, that's a figure you need to have written down in several key places. If you have your sacred numbers hidden in your cell phone, hide it in your cell phone. If you have any other places where you write down really important numbers for you, you need to have that one, because you need to maintain it. Because what happens in the process of the life of a bicycle is that this post is going to be raised and lowered for a variety of reasons. You know where I'm going this in the spinning class, because it's raised and lowered every day. But every time you take this into a bike shop, there's a possibility that someone is going to lower or raise or lower this, because they're going to clamp it here to do the bike maintenance. And so this thing can be going up and down, and you need to be able to walk into a bike shop with that number clear in mind. And so if you're a beginning cyclist and you don't know that number, just measure. If you like the height, just measure it, and this is your height for the time being. Because if you have a new apprentice in a bike shop, or maybe just someone that's not that attentive, or someone that's not that attentive and doesn't think you care, they can raise this, they can look at it visually, raise it, do the work maintenance, put it back down to where they think it should be, and then give you your bike back and not say a thing. I've had that happen to me more than once, right? And so when I go in and say 28 inches and 1/8, that's a message to that person that, oh, this is the guy that knows what he's doing. You want to be the guy or the gal that takes your bike shop in that knows what you're doing, that you're not going to accept just any old height of your seat, because if your seat height is off, now I'm going to go into the consequences. If your seat height is off, you could have a lot of problems, and you will eventually have problems. The first thing is, if it's way off, you're just going to notice it. It's like, this isn't comfortable. And so then what do? If you don't have a measurement, you have to start over, and then you have to establish your height. So let's look now at how we establish the proper seat height. So we need to be doing on the bike, and so I don't know if I can how well I can get on the bike here, but I think I can well enough for this YouTube. You want to have it at the bottom, and then look, when you're up on your seat here, you want to have 30% here, a 30% angle. I'm not quite up on my seat, but you get the point. It's about 30%. And so that's what you need. Now, I said 30%, but that's actually establishing 30% is a bit of guesswork. So it's going to be a combination of something that looks like 30%, and if you have somewhat an experienced cyclist in the bike shop or in your bike club to take a look at it, then you've got a combination of what looks mathematically correct and what looks by experience correct, and then you combine that with your experience on the bike. If you start at what looks like 30%, you're not going to do any damage. You're not going to probably have a bad day. But for what looks like 30%, this could be moved within probably a ½ inch. So you're going to want to work at it, and when you get the perfect spot after a few rides, that again is the number you want to have. That's the magic number you want to have hidden in your phone or in that special place where you keep your most important numbers. So that's my first point: how to establish, how to measure. So it's from here up this imaginary line to right here. That's the measurement. And then you want the 30% here. And then I've seen people talk about, trying to measure according to like the seed in your your waist. That's ridiculous because bike heights vary. The geometry of this cycle is very different than my other 25 bicycles, if you want to know the truth. What they all have is exactly the same length here, okay, between these 2 points. This is exact. There's a slight variation between mountain bikes and road bikes I'm not going to go into today. But the other things vary a lot because the wheel height varies. This is 27 inches. My mountain bikes are 26. There are mountain bikes that are 28. Frames vary. So, trying to like stand and do this, I've seen this in spinning classes. Like people stand here and try to figure this out. It's a bad point of departure. No serious cyclist would do that. I'm just going to tell you. So all apologies to the spinning instructors here that have learned this in some other way, but in my certified spinning class, we were told the same thing. We were instructed the same as I always have been on a bicycle, which is the 30% principle. So that's our starting point. So I have those 2 points that I wanted to make that are visual, and then I wanted to talk then about what happens when this is wrong, and chronically wrong, like too low or too high, and you do it a lot. Like, let's say you do 3 consecutive intense spinning classes with the wrong height, or 3 consecutive days riding your bike with the wrong height, or you go out and ride a bike 6 hours with the wrong height. Probably the first indicator, other than the fact that you should feel uncomfortable, would be that you probably feel like you have knee problems. And I want to give you a heads up early on, those of you that are beginners, about knee problems, because it's very scary to have a knee problem, right? I mean, when I've had knee problems, never any really serious ones, nothing that would take me to a doctor actually, because I remember the principles I'm going to tell you right now. But when I don't remember the principles, I get very scared, and I think I have to go to the doctor. Oh my God! Or I think I have to quit cycling, because this actually does happen with some other activities that are not cycling. I simply can't do them. I have an immediate problem. But in cycling, actually, just so you know, generally speaking, most people that ride bicycle, it's to solve knee problems. It doesn't usually cause knee problems, just so you know. Running will cause knee problems. Cycling is usually one of the remedies to running. And I have a long list of friends who are ex-runners who had knee problems, and now they ride bicycles. So, but if you do have some knee pain, it's probably related to this. It might be that you're in a spinning class grinding really hard at 25 RPM. So just don't do that. Don't accept the invitation to put the gear at 25 and grind like this. Cyclists don't do this. It's abnormal. It's bad for your knees. Okay. And few spinning instructors really want us to do that. So resist the temptation to be grinding under 40 RPMs. But other than that, you have the seat thing. So here's the deal. If you feel pain above or below the knee, it's probably a seat problem. And that's 90% of the time. If your knees are hurting, it's because of a seat problem. So here's the solution. I mean, in general, stretching is going to help. But specifically for knee problems caused by the wrong height, massage your legs on this band right here. Not necessarily the quad. You're going to want to do the quads anyway, but massage this band on the top, kind of like at an angle here. It's not the top, it's not the side, but in between. There's a band that connects to your knees. It tightens up and it causes knee pain. So massage this. I know the last time, a few years ago, before I had my present massage expert a few years ago, my previous one, I went in, I said, oh, my knees hurt. She just grinned, did this, and reminded me about the bands. It was the second reminder. And then since then, I'm very careful about these bands because I ride bikes a lot. So I don't have my seat height improper, but with excessive riding, you could get some knee pain because this tightens up and you haven't massaged it. So that's one of the multiple reasons why most serious cyclists go for massage regularly, so they don't have knee problems. And so that's the point I wanted to make about this. Anyway, don't freak out if you get a little bit of knee pain. Just adjust this and work on your bends. Then I wanted to introduce, again, since I have this opportunity to be visual, disconnected to this a little bit, but related to stretching, is a stretch I can't describe on podcasts that well, but it's so important for cyclists. I call it the cyclist stretch, but my massage expert says you could call it, a stretch for the rotators. But this is the stretch. I'm sure if you've cycled or go to spinning classes, you've seen it. But here you're stretching the upper glutes. I'm going to go from the side here. You're stretching the upper glutes. Whoops. You know this from your spinning class, maybe even your cycling club. And then you stretch this. That'll solve a lot of problems from cycling. So that's the cyclist stretch, in addition to the other 10 stretches you probably know about. So one last thing that's very visual that I wanted to bring up, and it relates to your shoes. Those of you that are even beginners know that in spinning classes, you are better off to graduate to shoes. Usually they sell mountain bike shoes to spinning students with these clips on the bottom to clip on to the pedals, these SPD pedals. And of course in the cycling world, there are 15 different kinds of pedals you can choose from, but most spinning classes are set up with these SPD pedals, and most bike shops know that. So all you have to do is go in and say, ask for a pair of bicycle shoes. They usually sell you comfortable mountain bike shoes like this with these clips on the bottom, so they clip in. But what I've noticed in the bike shops over the years is they put it on and they say, we're going to put it in the middle. And then if you want to, later on, if you want to adjust it, just let us know. And of course, they put it on in the middle, you start riding, then you forget about it. I've never heard hardly any cyclist, particularly like amateur cyclists, ever talk anymore about the placement of this pedal as far as, is it near this, is it higher here towards the toe, or is it more towards the back, or is it exactly in the middle? Yours is almost certainly in the middle, and that's good because it's safe. But I just wanted to use this visual to point out that this is movable. I don't recommend that you move it, because I don't recommend that you move any of this stuff on your own. I recommend that you take it, as I said earlier, to your bike shop, because they know a lot of the delicate issues related to this better than we do. And but the reason that, I think I actually do adjust these myself, but the point I want to make is these are movable, and you can move them a little forward if you want to be a little more aggressive and change. But be careful, because this is going to change the muscles you're using when you're doing your cycling in the spinning class or in the bicycle class. So for example, if you've been cycling for a few years and you're moving to another category, let's say you've been training for a year, now you're starting to get interested in how fast you go. You want to go faster than the people in your club, or you're signing up for a race, or you're doing your first triathlon. Maybe you want to go a little faster, so you're making adjustments. You're losing more weight, you're doing all kinds of things, you're getting stronger. But keep in mind, you could adjust this up, and that would make you more aggressive about, your pedal stroke will be more aggressive. You'll pay a price. And so you'll learn about that price the first time you do it with the new place. So of course, the best thing to do would be do it very gradually, maybe 1/8 of an inch at the time. You certainly wouldn't want to ever move it much more than 3/8 of an inch, I don't think. But among cyclists, I can remember biking events where I've talked with cyclists for hours about exactly the pros and cons of this placement, including I've had some conversations with some professional cyclists, particularly on the endurance circle, because there's this interplay. Then the more aggressive you are in this placement, probably the more you're going to tire out your muscles. So you have to decide how much speed you're going to exchange for endurance. It's speed versus endurance. So how this is placed will affect speed and endurance. So that's something to keep in mind. That's very visual, but I wanted to use this early YouTube to explain to you. So pedal placement, measuring length, or exactly how high or low we have the saddle, as we call it. I've called it seat a few times, but now that you're getting more experience, cyclists call these saddles, not seats. And so the height of your saddle, these are the issues we covered today, and I hope you find this useful. This is the YouTube and related to the podcast on almost everything important, related to the website on almost everything important, www.thetop64.com. So I'm Raymond L. Williams. Thank you very much. Look forward to future visual conversations on YouTube.